Hello, everyone. My name is Jan Dash, and I'm an attorney here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm here today to talk to you about Nevis and its financial services sector. The name of my law firm is Dash and Associates, and it's myself and my business partner, who's also my wife, Miss Kaylee Perez, who's also an attorney. We also have a trust and corporate services provider, so we can establish companies, corporations, trusts, and foundations for you here in Nevis. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a map of the entire Caribbean region. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see Miami, and in the bottom of the map, you'll see Caracas, Venezuela, and a little part of Colombia, which are the two northernmost countries in South America. And in the middle of that map, you'll see Nevis, right in the middle of the Caribbean archipelago. On the left-hand side, you'll see uh, the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the northernmost island, the one that's shaped like a chicken leg or a pickleball bat, is St. Kitts, and the southernmost island, the one that's shaped like a ball or a meatball, is Nevis. Now, the full name of our country is the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis. It's colloquially known, or better known, as St. Kitts and Nevis, and it's called St. Christopher because Christopher Columbus sighted Nevis and St. Kitts and Nevis on his second visit to the Caribbean in 1493, and he named Nevis Nevis because he thought that the clouds which hang on the mountain in the middle of our island look like snow. And for those of you who speak Spanish, Nieves means snow, so he named the island Santa Marta de Nieves, and we anglicized it to Nevis. We're located approximately 250 miles southeast of Puerto Rico, and we received our independence from Britain in 1983, and I'm very proud to say that my former business partner, a gentleman who died a couple of years ago, Herman Liebert, was a member of the negotiations team when we received our independence, and he was also is also my uncle, and he was one of my main inspirations to become an attorney, and certainly my main inspiration to become an attorney here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Our population is 50,000, and the majority of the people live on St. Kitts, and approximately 10 to 12,000 people live on Nevis. We're a member of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, which is an economic union which includes the island or nation of Antigua Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, all of which are independent countries, and the British overseas territories of Anguilla and Montserrat. We're home to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, which is the bank that regulates the Eastern Caribbean dollar, the monetary unit which is used in the OCS. And the Eastern Caribbean dollar has been pegged to the US dollar at a rate of 2.7 Eastern Caribbean dollars to one US dollar since 1976. The judiciary is regional. It's the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, which is located in St. Lucia, but it has individual courts, high court and magistrates courts in all of the islands and in the British Virgin Islands, which is still a British overseas territory. Now, the name of the nation is St. Kitts and Nevis, and under our Constitution, Nevis has the right to make laws for the peace and good government of Nevis. As such, we have an executive branch and a legislative branch, and as I just said before, we don't have our own individual judicial branch because the judicial branch is shared regionally, but we have our own courts, and we have our own high court and magistrates court. As of the posting of this video, the current premier is a gentleman named Mark Brantley. He's the premier and minister of finance. He's assisted with regards to his duties as a minister of finance by a gentleman named Colin Dorr. The legal advisor is a woman named Helen Lewis. And the chair of Nevis Financial Services, that's the body which regulates registered agents, of which I'm one, is a woman named Heidi Lynn Sutton. So Nevis has a financial services sector, as I said before. It allows for the establishment or registration of companies, corporations, foundations, insurers, and trusts. Um, with the exception of insurers, none of the companies, corporations, or foundations are regulated. Only the insurers are regulated. A company, corporation, foundation, and trust must have a registered agent, and that's a service we provide. And also, an insurer may also have a registered agent or an insurance manager. And as we'll talk about in a few minutes, insurance managers are regulated as well. Again, Nevis Financial Services is the regulatory body agency that regulates registered agents, insurance managers, insurers, and international banks. The basis of our law and jurisprudence is the common law of England, which is judge-made law from the Middle Ages and is applicable in all English-speaking countries, including the United States. And under the Constitution, again, we have our semi-autonomous status, and we have our own executive and legislative branches. The laws of St. Kitts and Nevis are federal laws, and they're called acts, and the laws of Nevis are called ordinances. Since independence in 1983, the ordinances of Nevis have been amended, repealed, and replaced, which has led to the growth of our international financial services industry. So we're going to talk about these laws individually, but let me just mention them as an overview. We have corporations, we have trusts, we have companies, and I'm going to distinguish the difference between companies and corporations when we get to it. We have international banks, we have insurers, and we have foundations. So a corporation is a legal entity which is separate and distinct from its owners. The owners are known as shareholders, and the persons who make the daily business decisions are known as directors. The Business Corporations Law was the first law which we enacted. It was enacted in 1984. And some of the features of the law are there's no annual return, there's no minimum capitalization requirement, there's no requirement for a local director, and as we'll discuss in a second, a local director may not be a good idea to have for a business corporation. And the names and addresses and circumstances of the directors must be revealed to the registered agent, which is myself, but that information is kept confidential by myself. It is not revealed to the government, and the government in turn would not reveal it to anybody else because they don't have it, obviously. Again, we talked about local directors. A few years ago, the United States and the European Union put pressure on all of the small jurisdictions which do international financial services like Nevis, Anguilla, Cook Islands, and the like to avoid what's known as ring fencing. So they couldn't treat international companies different than they did from local companies. So what they had to do was essentially impose tax on all companies. So you used to be able to set up a corporation or company and avoid tax. Now you have to pay tax. However, with regards to our corporations, we have what's known as a permanent establishment concept. So you will only pay tax if you have a local director, and that local director makes a business decision while you're on island. So while the company is taxable, they don't pay tax unless the local director, there is a local director, which is one, and the local director makes a business decision while they're on island. The corporation is convertible to another entity, so it can convert to a company, and it can convert to a foundation, or it can convert to a foreign entity, and foreign corporations may re-domicile to Nevis and become corporations. We allow for the registration of liens or charges or mortgages against the corporation. We also allow for the variation and satisfaction of those charges, liens, and mortgages. And if that happens, this is a public registry which is searchable. It provides constructive notice to any potential future lenders. A trust. A trust is a private agreement between two parties to benefit a third or to achieve a goal. The trust law was first enacted in 1994, and under our law, again, the filing requirement is minimal. All you have to file is the name of the trust, the name of the trustee, the date of settlement, and the registered agent has to make a statement that the trust itself complies with the laws of Nevis, the International Exempt Trust Ordinance. There's no minimum capitalization requirements, and we don't recognize foreign judgments against any person or thing to do with the trust. So we don't recognize a foreign judgment against a trust, a trustee, or a beneficiary. All legal action, or protector as well, all legal action must be brought in the High Court of St. Kitts and Nevis. There's no tax against against a trust. There's a rule called the rule against perpetuities. It's an old English law which tried to avoid having trust exist indefinitely. Legal thinking has changed since the Middle Ages, and it's been determined, not just in Nevis but around the world, that it may be best to allow the person who establishes the trust to determine when the trust may exist, or if the trust should exist indefinitely. So the rule against perpetuities with regard to trust are eliminated. So the person who sets up the trust may choose how long the trust may exist for, or if the trust may exist indefinitely. In order to have a trust, you need a trustee, and the trustee may be somebody like myself, somebody who provides registered agent services, or if the client wants to manage their trust themselves, they may incorporate a corporation, form a company, or establish a foundation which could act as a private trustee. So essentially, you could have a company like mine or another registered agent act as your trustee, or you can set up company, corporation, or a foundation, and you may act as a trustee for yourself, and you could be a beneficiary of that trust. The settlor may retain control over the trust, and the trust may impose restrictions or conditions on beneficiaries to benefit, which may impinge on their fundamental rights. We already talked about a corporation. We're going to talk about a company. Company, again, is an entity which is separate and distinct from its owners. In a company, the owners are known as members, and it may be managed by managers, or it may be managed by those same members. The law was enacted in 1995, and it was actually drafted by a colleague of mine, a gentleman named David Neufeld, who's an attorney. He used to work in New Jersey, but him and his wife got tired of the snow, and they moved down to Florida. There's no annual return, just like a corporation. There's no minimum capitalization requirements. There's no requirement for a local manager. It may be managed by the manager, as I said, or be managed by the member. And we allow for single member companies. So the same person may be the manager and the member, or the same person may just be the member and may manage the company as the member. Again, the names, addresses, and circumstances of the members and managers need to be revealed to the registered agent, but the registered agent is required to keep that information confidential and not pass it on to the government. And obviously, since the government does not have that information, they cannot make that information public. A company is considered to be a flow-through or pass-through entity. That means the income can be taxed at one level, either at the corporate level or the member level, in order to avoid double taxation. Again, we discussed permanent establishment before when we were talking about corporations, but again, let's discuss it again. Companies are taxable, but they will only pay tax if they have a local manager, and the local manager makes a business decision while they're on island. It's convertible to a corporation or a foundation or a entity in a foreign jurisdiction, and foreign companies may re-domicile to Nevis and become companies under this law. We allow for the registration of mortgages, charges, and liens against the company or the company's assets, and it's a public registry which is searchable, and it's deemed to provide constructive notice to any potential future lenders. We don't have this in the corporation's ordinance, but we have what's known as a charging order. Now, a charging order is a court order which a creditor acquires against a debtor who is a member, and it allows the creditor to receive a distribution from the company if the company decides to make a distribution. Now, while the creditor has the right to receive the distribution, the creditor cannot force the manager to make the distribution. So what that allows for, it allows the creditor to negotiate with, or the member to negotiate with the creditor to essentially avoid the situation. And the charging order is the exclusive remedy which is available to creditors. So basically, it's a form of creditor protection. It allows the member who is in debt to a creditor to potentially limit the ability of that creditor to seize their assets. We have a fraudulent conveyance provisions in this law. Basically, what this allows for is any creditor claiming that they have been defrauded by a member who's deposited their assets into the company, the creditor has the burden of proof. That means the creditor must prove that they've been defrauded. And there's two standards of proof. There's a beyond a reasonable doubt standard, and there's a preponderance of the evidence standard. Now, a preponderance of the evidence standard is the typical standard that you find in a civil case, which is what this would be. But we use the criminal standard, which is a higher standard. So basically, the creditor has the burden of proof. They must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a higher standard of proof. And they must do it within a 2-year period of the alleged action. Everybody knows what a bank is, and we are home to 6 international banks. And the law was first enacted in 2014. It repealed and replaced an old banking ordinance. And what international banks are banks which are allowed to deal in all currencies throughout the world, with the exception of the Eastern Caribbean dollar. They may accept clients from around the world, with the exception of St. Kitts and Nevis. Companies, corporations, trusts, and foundations are exempt. So basically, you can open an account for a company, corporation, trust, or foundation, but you cannot open an account for somebody like myself who actually lives here in Nevis. The capitalization requirement for a bank is $2 million, which is a lot of money for most people, but it's a minimal amount for capitalization for a bank. And they must also have a reserve fund of 25% of net profits, which should be held by a third-party holder. There's no tax, and the establishment fee or initial fee or fee to get the company, the bank started, is $100,000, and the annual fee is also $100,000. Insurance, I think everybody knows what insurance is, but again, it's a contract between an insurance company and the insurance company agrees to provide financial compensation to an insured against loss or damage. When it comes to international insurance, we talk about 2 types of insurance. captive insurance and reinsurance. Now, captive insurance is a situation where a company owns their own insurance company, and that insurance company insures the risks of that company. So instead of going to a Geico or any other State Farm or any other insurance company, you essentially would own your own insurance company, and that insurance company would insure your own risks. Reinsurance, it's basically insurance for insurance companies. So instead of one insurance company carrying all of the risk, it's spread out amongst a bunch of different insurance companies so that the insurance company lowers its risk. The law was enacted in 2004. We require an insurance company or insurance company to be a corporation. So the insurance company must be incorporated under the Nevis Business Corporations Ordinance, and then it must apply to become an insurance company. An insurance company can be represented by a insurance manager or a registered agent. It must have 2 directors who must be natural persons, and it is allowed to segregate individual risks by establishing statutory funds. Insurance companies, since it's insurance and it's financial, they have a higher level of regulation than regular corporations. They're required to submit audited financial statements on an annual basis, and they must also request permission if they're going to seek to dissolve, and they also must request permission if they're going to seek to re-domicile, which means leave and go to another jurisdiction. A foundation is a self-owned entity which is separate and distinct from its managing board, the persons who manage it. Much like a trust, it can benefit beneficiaries or seek to achieve a goal. Now, a foundation is a civil law concept. It's not a common law concept. Again, the difference between common law and civil law was the judge-made law from medieval England, which through colonization got passed down to the United States, the colonies in the Caribbean, Australia, New Zealand, whereas civil law is a code. It's a series of codes, which was more prevalent on the continents of Europe, France, Netherlands, and the like. A foundation grew out of civil law countries, and we were the first jurisdiction in the world in 2004, which was a common law jurisdiction, to enact foundation legislation. Now, a foundation may exist indefinitely, doesn't have to have an end period. There's no minimum capitalization requirements. There's no tax here in Nevis. It has a management board to make the everyday business decisions, and it must be assisted by a secretary. And there must be at least one person on the management board, and there must be one person who acts as secretary, and they have to be different people. So you need at least 2 people. The founder may be appointed to the management board. That's the client. Client acts as the founder and sets up the foundation. And if the founder does not want to be on the management board, the entity which makes the day-to-day business decisions, they may be on what's known as a supervisory board, which oversees the actions of the management board and, as determined by the bylaws, can generally have the power to fire the management board. We don't recognize foreign judgments when it comes to foundation, and all legal action must be brought before the High Court of St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Christopher and Nevis. We borrow the fraudulent conveyance concept from the company's ordinance. Again, a conveyance to a foundation will not be considered fraudulent if the subscription happened more than 1 year. So there's basically a 1-year statute of limitations in order for the creditor to bring an action against a debtor if they claim the debtor took their money and put it into a foundation. And that is basically it from me. Thank you very much. I hope you made it through to the end of my presentation. Again, my name is Jan Dash. I'm an attorney here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I also own my own trust company, which is called, they're both called Dash and Associates. And if you're interested in finding out more about Nevis and how we can help you, or how you can use Nevis products to your benefit, please, you can contact me on Facebook via email. My email is on the screen, or you can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks again, and I hope to hear from you soon.